Well, welcome once more to the Way Lessons, revealing the truth of the so-called elite chosen people, master race bastards, what their beliefs are, and where all of this comes from. All this mythology. To most people, it's mythology. But to the powers that be, those who consider us cattle, they're slaves, they believe it. And it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter. They believe they're divine, that they're descended from divine beings from the heavens. And they have their DNA. They share their blood. The blue bloods. Aristocracy all over the world. These kings and these queens, these dictators, these families, these royal families. Oh, and just thought you should know that on top of already disrupting my streams, on top of actually deleting people who subscribe to my channel towards the end of my last video, the sons of bitches of YouTube, the acolytes, the little peons that work for the New World Order, decided to take out my audio. These are the levels to which they have sunk. What happened? This free speech. I guess it never existed. So you guys have to understand that the so-called founding fathers, I like to call them the founding Freemasons, it was always the objective to enslave us. That's why they called it the Great Experiment. They knew that the experiment would fail, which it has. More and more of our freedoms are taken away. People don't seem to care as long as they have their Grammy Awards to see the whores of the Illuminati naked walking around like Kanye's bitch. The whores like Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift doing their dance half naked. They don't care. They don't care. What's more important are the next series of Marvel films. The new DC Universe films, the DC, worked on by crypto Jews, fake Hebrews. You don't care. You don't care. And neither do I. I hope you get enslaved. I hope you get enslaved in the worst slavery you could fucking imagine. Anyway, so you can continue disrupting my fucking streams, YouTube. I know you're socialist pigs. The people that view me know you're a bunch of socialist communist pigs. All the same shit. Different names, same shit. All of it's all the same shit. No matter what ism that you follow, it's all the same shit. You can continue doing what you're doing, and I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. For the good or for the bad. It is what it is. So I'm going to leave off where exactly, I'm going to start exactly where I left off on the part, and this is really strange too, where exactly it was that they cut off my audio. Seems to be working now. I was talking about Moses' sister, Miriam. I was reading about Miriam and the fact that she was actually in charge. She was telling the people to put the blood of the lamb on the doors. Moses told her to do it, but why did Moses count on her, his sister? And my question was, right before the audio got taken out, was if a female in those times, and that was serious. Those people were serious. They really believed. They really believed. It was a female. Moses counted on his sister to tell the people what they needed to do. If she was such an important person and she was a female, why the hell do the Jewish females, why are they so subservient to their so-called Jew men? Funny how when I brought up that question, my audio gets cut off. I guess somebody didn't like it over there at YouTube. Anyway, let me find where exactly I left off. Okay. The lamb and the lamb's blood have two rather dramatic examples. And let me again reiterate what I've been saying on each of these videos. I am not the author of this book. So if you don't like something that I read and you get all butthurt, okay, don't get mad at me. I'm just the messenger. The lamb and the lamb's blood have two rather dramatic examples. The first is in Egypt during the Passover. Miriam had instructed the Hebrews to spread lamb's blood over the lintel. This, of course, was standard procedure for all the temple sites of Isis. I think that's really where the anger, I think that's where why they cut off my audio towards the end of the video, was because of this. Yes, I know that last one raises many questions of its own. Perhaps later, when there is time, we can explore it further. The second is at the birth of Jesus, when an angel brought the shepherds in from the fields. Again, Isis was worshipped by these shepherds. Again, Isis was worshipped by these shepherds. Revelation 6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder. One of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." The seals represent certain people and certain events. Verse 2. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. Here is the goddess Artemis, or Diana. She was called the huntress, and her weapon was the bow. Verse 3. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." Verse 4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. Who's doing that now? And there was given unto him a great sword. This is the goddess Kali. Her sacred color was red, her weapon a sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." Oh, that was verse 5. So just a minute. Verse 5. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. This is the goddess Ma'at. She is called truth or justice. Her symbol was the balances and the feather. Her job was to measure a man's sin against the weight of a feather. She was the bringer of judgment. Verse 6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." Verse 7. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." Verse 8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. This is the goddess Hel, Norse mythology, supposedly. Her name is Death. Her mines were called the pits of hell. Verse 9. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. Verse 10. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?" Verse 11. And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. This jumps to a point when the space portion of the battle is over. The people who are mentioned are those that stayed loyal to the collective and were rescued. They are anxious over the fate of their fellow loyalists still on the earth. Verse 12. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And let me just pause here for a moment. There's an interesting a book that, if you guys are interested, we have a lot of books about modern day things being seen in the sky, in the heavens, UFO books and all that. But there's a book that came out way before the modern day UFO phenomenon, um, that you should really look into and find and read if you can find a copy. It's called The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. And what's important about the Book of the Damned is that it actually records sightings before the modern day UFO phenomenon and craze. We're talking about sightings in the late 1700s and 1800s. And that's why it's important, because everybody talking about we started seeing these things after World War II are liars. There were things being seen in the sky, things so large that they would actually cause an eclipse of the sun. Everything would go dark. They called these things dark bodies, I think they were called. Dark, yeah, dark bodies. I'm pretty sure that's what they're called. I don't have the book in front of me right now. Um, Towards the end of the video, if I can remember to do so, but look for the book. It's called Charles Fort. Charles Fort is the author. It's called The Book of the Damned. I'm not too sure it's dark bodies. Now I got to do the research here now. Let me see. I know where to find it too. I know where to find it. Let me just do this. Let me see. No, 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 no. When you're looking for something that you can't find it. Isn't it that the way of things? Dark bodies. But I think that Charles Fort called them something else. Well, I digress. Sorry, but the book is called The Book of the Damned. Read it, by Charles Fort. And let me get back to this. And the reason why I mentioned it, though, because this part right here where it talks about the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, it reminded me about those accounts where something would go right by the sun, as large or bigger than the sun, and block its light out. Let me go back to this. Let me start from this again. Verse 12, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Verse 13, and the stars of heaven fell onto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. This is the beginning of the battle to retake the earth from the rebels. Note that it is the stars, which is the symbol of the goddesses, that fell to the earth. This is the Doma forces making planet fall. The fig tree is as pure a symbol of the goddess as you can get. Notice the use of the words her and she. This cast a feminine gender on the entire event. Verse 14, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Verse 15, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bonded man, and every free man, Freemason man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Verse 16, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. Verse 17, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? This needs very little explanation. The rebels hid underground to escape bombardment. Revelation 7, verse 1. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. These are the 4 main war goddesses mentioned before. Their fleet is in orbit and about to begin their landings. Verse 2, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea. Verse 3, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. Verse 4, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000. 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. And I'm talking about the real children of Israel, not those over there right now perpetrating a fraud. This was the god Shiva. He ordered the Doma to hold their positions until those that were loyal to the collective could be found and evacuated. The last part of these verses has been really misunderstood. It has been used by all types of unscrupulous people. An entire religion was invented centered on the belief that only 144,000 people would be saved or chosen. Let's clear this up once and for all. Page. It would be kind of helpful if they had. Verse 9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all the nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and psalms in their hands. This verse says it all. Those removed before the battle were not just 144,000 Jews, but people of all races and religions. They were removed before the final battle. Important note. What I have just explained to you is very important. It was an event that has been talked about, argued about, and theorized about. It is something that the Christians in particular were counting on. I am afraid they are just a little bit too late, however, by many thousands of years. This, of course, was the rapture. The loyal followers of God were removed from earth. But it is finished. It is history. And I want to point out the fact that the word rapture here is in quotes. 13. And one of the elders answered, that's verse 13. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes? And whence came they? Verse 14. And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, these are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. The great tribulation was the war. Let me see something here. And one of the elders, let me see. Okay. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it onto the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake, pre-invasion bombardment of rebel forces from space. And the seven angels which had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees were burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. Here's a little show of biblically proportioned force. Hail was a frequent bombardment weapon, but it is not the simple hail that you are thinking of. Each of these hailstones weighed a talent or more. The Hebrew talent is equivalent to 93.75 pounds. Mixed into the hail were certain chemicals that, when freed and mixed with oxygen, produced a compound similar to, but much more powerful than, napalm. And the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. It should be noted at this point that there are now three main forces on earth. One, the collective. Two, the Doma. Three, the rebels. These verses deal with the destruction of the third force, the rebels. The above verses describe the annihilation of the strongest rebel fortress. This was located underwater and therefore shielded from the first bombardment. Its destruction was seen as essential to final victory. Once taken out, it would leave the rebels no place to retreat to. It was destroyed by a thermonuclear missile launched from orbit. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of water. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. This is great. You're going to love this one. After the sea base was destroyed, an assault was launched against the mainland fortress of the rebels. This was located near what used to be the great city of Ur. It was at the Tigris and Euphrates River junction. The fortress was taken and became the Doma headquarters and staging area on Earth. The star that they're talking about is, of course, a goddess. But they wanted you to know without a doubt which goddess. The name of the star is Wormwood. Wormwood is the name of four plants rather. It is used in place of the word bitter, whence why the waters became bitter. The goddess Isis has another name. She is called Mara or Mary. Let me repeat that again. The goddess Isis has another name. She is called Mara or Mary. The Hebrew name for bitter is Mary. This was a very bloody battle, but in the end, Mara conquered. Many rebels lost their lives as a result of the rivers coming under the bitter one's control. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels, which are yet to sound. The smoke from the battles filled the air. There is a brief lull in the battle while the Doma fortifies its positions. The staging area is intense with activity as the four main Doma armies gather there. Revelations 9, verse 1. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven onto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. Verse 2. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. Verse 3. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Verse 4. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Verse 5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. Verse 6. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Verse 7. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. Verse 8. And verse 8, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. Verse 9. And they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. Let me pause here. To this day, people are using revelations to fool people, to lie to people, to tell them this is what's going to happen in the future. All of this has already happened. You see how sneaky these sons of bitches are. What I've just been reading from you, to you, okay, from Revelations, is exactly the tale that Charlie Manson was telling his flock, what they were trying to start. This is the plot. Charlie Manson stole it from Revelations. And he was, of course, he changed some things, but was using this like many others before him, to convince his followers about what was going to happen. Oh, this is what's going to happen, and we're going to be a part of it, and we're going to take over after all this happens. They're liars. They're deceivers. And Charlie Manson wasn't the only one. Oh no, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them in different churches around the world, calling themselves holy, but the only thing holy about them is their lies. They're a bunch of liars, 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 liars. They lie about everything. And it doesn't matter if it's in politics, it doesn't matter if it's at a church, a temple, a synagogue, whatever the fuck they want to call it. They're a bunch of fucking liars. Verse 10, and they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. Verse 11, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. That's what Charlie Manson called himself. He taught his followers that he was the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue has his name Apollon. The star that fell this time is the Norse goddess Hel. She was in charge of the mining pits. What follows next is an attempt to accomplish two basic goals. One, to gain enough time to reinforce and resupply all Doma forces. Two, to fight a hit-and-run type battle against the rebel forces. It was hoped that it might cause them to surrender and thereby avoid a major battle and enormous loss of life. The part about a king over them is ridiculous. The commander of the Scorpion forces was the Egyptian goddess Selket. There is a statue of her that was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. It is the one of the 4 goddesses guarding his tomb. On top of her head is a symbolic headpiece. It is a scorpion, her symbol. She commands the scorpion armies. And you thought that was just a name made up in those mummy movies. The Scorpion King? Verse 12, one woe is past, and behold, there come 2 woes more hereafter. Verse 13, and the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God. Verse 14, saying to the 6th angel, which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Verse 15, and the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the 3rd part of men. Verse 16, and the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them. Verse 17, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and the jacinth and brimstone. And that's what, and this is what Charlie Manson was telling his flock, that the Beatles were, that the breastplates were the guitars that the Beatles were playing. You see how these bastards lie? And unfortunately, so many of you are so stupid that you follow these leaders, these Hitlers, these Charlie Mansons. You follow these fuckers. And that's not just the past. You follow them till this day. If it sounds good and you respect them, they can lie like a motherfucker and you believe it. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. Verse 18, by these 3 was the 3rd part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. Verse 19. For their power is in mouth and in their tails. For their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads with had heads, and with them they do hurt. Verse 20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. Verse 21. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. This is the beginning of the final battles. The combined collective and Doma forces number 200 million strong. The rest is simply descriptive. What I'm trying to get across to you is that the Bible has been perverted and abused to fool a lot of you into thinking that these people are gods, these chosen people, they call themselves also the master race. They use the Bible for their own ends, and you fools believe them. And you fools believe them. They'll take a verse from here, another verse from there, convince you this means we have to go to war for Israel. We have to defend Israel. We're going to get into a war with the Middle East, and they're using the Bible to promote it and convert and convince you that it's all, it's prophecy. It's prophecy. They've been doing it for years. They used the Bible for the Great War. They used the Bible again for World War II. They keep using it. All these fake-ass religion, the majority of them founded by Freemasons, Jehovah's Witnesses, founded by Freemasons, Mormons, Freemasons. They're just two of them. And now, from my research, they're running the Catholic Church. Now you understand why there's so much pedophilia in the church? Look who's running it. Oh, Lord. They suffer for lack of knowledge. Revelations 10, verse 1. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. Verse 2. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth. Verse 3. And cried with a loud voice, and when a lion roareth, and when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. This is after the war. It is the god Shiva and the 7 great thunders, goddesses. I know it hurts. I know it hurts. All this time, just like I read to you in the last video about Satan Claus, when you learned Satan Claus was fake, you felt like you were lied to, you were butthurt, Then years later, you're helping the same people that lied to you, lied to other children. Or you yourself had children and lied to them and convinced them that Satan Claus was going to bring them stuff for Christmas. It hurts when you figure out, when you realize that all your life you've been lied to in the churches, in the schools, your own parents. And then you wonder why there's so much rebelliousness and nobody listens to their parents. Because you brought them up on lies. And now they lie to you. You made lying acceptable, didn't you? Verse 4. And when the seven thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, seal up those things which the seven thunders uttered, and write them not. Verse 5. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven. Verse 6. And swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven, and the things that therein are, and the earth, and the things that therein are, and the sea, and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. Verse 7. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. This is the way. 7 message. Here's what they said. The seven thunders declared the earth to be a free planet. It would not come, or rather, it would not become a colony of the collective. Yet, the leaders of the collective saw mankind as an abomination, a genetic experiment of their own making, and therefore of their responsibility. They believed him to be incapable of achieving civilization. They saw only evil in what he did. To let him continue would only make him suffer and the problem larger. They had created him, so all that he did was of their ultimate making. They wanted to clean their karmic debt now before it grew too large to pay. They ordered the Doma to destroy man now. The Doma refused. They pledged every means at their disposal toward helping man achieve civilization. They pledged their very lives to protect him. They told the collective that mankind were their children, and if they tried to destroy him, they would have to first defeat the Doma. The collective looked down at the earth and at what was left of the rebel forces. They quickly decided that taking on the Doma would not be the wisest of choices. The Doma then pledged to teach mankind the laws of humanity and the art of being human. They promised to one day return and invite man into the collective of human races, not as slaves, as they were created to be, but as free people, as equals. Thus began the education of mankind. It is the subject of the next 3 way messages. They will deal with a very sensitive and vitally important topic: the Doma Messiah projects. Let's see. Whoa, a lot of it. There's a lot of it. Man, how long have we, what time is it? 11:19. Okay. The below verses deal with the Doma forces that were on the earth during the first part of the war. Revelations 12, verse 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Verse 2. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. The woman is a representation of the Doma. The child that she is about to give birth to is you, the human race of Earth. The rest simply says that you have been a real pain in the butt for them. But tell me, is there any child that is not? They risked their very lives to ensure your birth as a free people. Verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. Verse 4. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and it did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Verse 5. And she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Verse 6. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,230 days. The dragon is, of course, Satan, the synagogue of Satan. These are not holy people. They are not the master race. After his defeat in space, he sought to kill all those who were on the earth and still loyal to the collective. He especially went after the Doma on earth. The Doma, however, fled and were later rescued along with most of their earth human children. One interesting point is the bring forth of a man child. The Doma is telling you here that the males quickly took power in every nation and have ruled the earth ever since without much compassion. Verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. Verse 8. And prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. Verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. And they're still deceiving the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Verse 10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Verse 11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Verse 12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he has but a short time. Satan is defeated in space, the heavens. The freed people in the solar system are rejoicing, but they are very worried about their companions still on earth. Verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he was cast on to the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. Verse 14. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the face of the serpent. Verse 15. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away from the flood. Verse 16. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Verse 17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. The Doma are the women that brought forth the man-child. Notice here that she is given what is obvious even to the most hardened skeptic, an aircraft to transport her in. As for the last verse, sorry guys, Jesus wasn't even a zygote in the test tube when these events occurred. Revelation 13, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him power, and his seat, and great authority. Verse 3. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Let me just pause here. As I stated before, as stated by the author, all this stuff from Revelations already happened. Okay? But to this day, the liars, the hoodwinkers, and they know who they are when I call them hoodwinkers, use Revelations to this day to lie to the people, the cattle, that's what they consider them, and make them believe nonsense. So all of y'all out there that believe that Trump was the one that was wounded and then was healed, you're a bunch of fools. You're a bunch of idiots. You're gonna fall for it again. Every 4 years, every 8 years, they give you a new puppet to follow, and you fucking follow them like the idiots and morons you are. Yes, indeed. And then you complain and bitch where you don't really get what they promised you, do you? It's unbelievable. All they got to do is put a new puppet in there, and y'all follow them. And then y'all use the Bible and use it to lie to what they call the masses. I call you the asses. Oh my God. This is from chapter 13. It is not part of the Great War, but rather is a retelling of an earlier conflict between 2 factions of the Anunnaki on the earth. It details events that led to Satan's ascension to power. The giveaway here is the single wounded head. There is a Sumerian stela which depicts this exactly. It is part of the battle between Tiamat, Leviathan, and her descendants. Who could that be? Revelations 14, verse 1. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Sion, not Zion. Idiots, morons. These people call it Zion, and then call themselves Zionists. It's not Zion with a Z, it's with an S. Sion. But what does it matter? As long as they got beards, wear robes, have money, and you're at their temples and their synagogues or your churches, as long as they look holy, you believe anything. Revelations 14, verse 1. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Sion with an S, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. Verse 2. And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. Verse 3. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 444,000 which were redeemed from the earth. Verse 4. These are they which were not defiled with women. What the hell does that mean? For they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. Verse 5. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. This entire chapter has been heavily edited by early patriarchal writers. It is a mixture of truth and fantasy. The lamb is a symbol of Isis. And as for the 144,000, I have already shown you that many more than this were removed from the earth. What they were trying to imitate here were the earth human women, which were of the Doma virgins. Notice the not defiled with women. Whenever you see messages such as this, it is an instant giveaway that men have had a go at the scriptures. Verse 6. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. Verse 7. Saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. Verse 8. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen the great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Verse 9. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, verse 10, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Verse 11. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up over ever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, nor who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Verse 12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Verse 13. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Let me read that again. Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. The above was added by later writers. If you see anything of value in it, feel free to use it. Jesus, however, was not yet born. Verse 14. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Verse 15. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. Verse 16. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Verse 17. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. Verse 18. And another angel came out from the altar which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. Verse 19. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. Verse 20. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horse bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. You notice how a lot of these verses you're hearing for the first time. The enemy, the liars, only pick and choose what they can. They mix truth with falsehood. And they don't read all of it. When you go to church, the priest, no matter what denomination of Christianity is, do they read the whole thing in context? No! They take one verse from here, another verse from there, and then combine it with some sick ideology of something that they believe in today's world. It's unbelievable. Here is a clue as to who really fought this war. The sickle is a weapon of the goddess, pure and simple. The sickle is a weapon based on the shape of the crescent moon. It was the standard weapon used by Amazon societies in the ancient world. The rest of Revelations is largely a rehash of the story, with an overt attempt to demonize women in the process. They also try to blast fornication as the vile act of touching a woman at every opportunity. It has been so heavily edited as a piece of patriarchal propaganda that it is not worth going over. You have seen how the war was fought and how it ended. We will now jump to the end of Revelations. Revelations 21 verse 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. Verse 2. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. The new heaven and the new earth are both post-war. Notice here the identification of the Doma spacecraft with a feminine nature. Verse 3. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. Verse 4. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Verse 5. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. Verse 6. And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is at thirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. Verse 7. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. This is part of the promise the Doma made earlier to mankind. Whoa. Oh boy. Wait a minute here. Okay. Home stretch, y'all. Home stretch. I want to thank those of you who have followed me, stayed with me since I began. Um, I noticed that you got kicked out a couple of times by the bastards at YouTube. The socialist pigs don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to know that the religions, all the religions, are a bunch of lying bastards. Revelations 22, verse 6. And he said unto me, these sayings are faithful and true. And the Lord God of the holy prophets sent his angel to shew unto his servants the things which must shortly be done. Verse 7. Behold, I come quickly. Blessed is he that keepeth the sayings of the prophecy of his book. Verse 8. And I, John, saw these things and heard them. And when I heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which shewed me these things. Verse 9. Then saith he unto me, see thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book. Worship God. Notice here that the angel says he is just like John and does not want his worship. Verse 10. And he saith unto me, seal not the sayings of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. Verse 11. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he which is filthy, let him be filthy still, and he that is righteous, let him be righteous still, and he that is holy, let him be holy still. Verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. Verse 13. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. The Alpha/Omega was an epitaph of Isis. She was also called the One. Let me repeat that part, because it's very important. A lot of you out there talk about you worship God, you believe in God, but you don't know what the God is. You don't know what God you're worshiping. You believe the liars. She was also called the One. Verse 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. Verse 15. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. Verse 16. I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. Verse 17. And the Spirit and the bride say, come. And let him that heareth say, come. And let him that is at thirst come. And whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. Here is your last and final clue. Jesus says he is the offspring of the root of David and the bright and morning star. Who is the morning star? I hope you're sitting down. You are about to get the shock of your life. The morning star is another name for Diana. Diana is simply another name for Isis or Mary. This is another case of the early patriarchal male writers distorting the meaning of words to deceive the populace and further degrade women as a whole. To further prove this point, Did you know that the morning star is the same planet that is also called the evening star? It appears again at dusk, but in another part of the sky. It is the planet Venus. The name Venus is again simply another name for the goddess. It is important that you understand something. I am not the one calling Jesus the offspring of the morning star. These are Jesus's own words. You are allowed to disbelieve me, but do you dare disbelieve him? His mother was Mary, Isis, Diana. The early church writers knew who Jesus' true mother was. They knew that Jesus was born of and served the wishes of the great goddess. That's why he told John, don't worship me. The followers of the goddess were many, and it represented a direct challenge to their authority. They needed to take over the female-dominated religion and supplant it with one of their own design. One made exclusively for males, complete with male priest, a male savior, a male god. How do I know all this? Because I serve Mary. I believe her. And I tell you what she has told me. She has been greatly offended. I will end this message now. The next way message will greatly expand on the comments made above. I know that they have generated many questions in your mind. This is the purpose of the way, after all, to make you question. It hopefully will answer some of them along the way. I hope you have learned a great deal in this message. Verse 18, for I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book, if any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. Verse 19, and if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life and out of the holy city and from the things which are written in this book. Verse 20, he which testifieth these things saith, surely I come quickly. Amen. Or is it Amun? Even so, come Lord Jesus. Verse 21. The grace of our God, the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with all. Be with you all. Amen. If I have changed or taken away anything, if I have not spoken the words of my lady, has come my lady. If I have not spoken the words my lady has commanded me to say, then I will answer to God. I will not answer to any man, religion, or government. Let God be my judge, lest you be judged. Oh, I think it's too late. The liars, who are the majority of them, I'm talking about the secret societies and its male leaders, are a bunch of homosexuals. That's why you're seeing all the crazy shit going on today. That's why they're trying to. That's why they're convincing men that they're women and women are men. You know what I'm saying? Because again, they're taking the Bible and they are using it, and they tell you in their movies and in their TV shows, they're showing you, they're telling you right in your face that taking the Bible. Go watch. What's that movie called? Oh, go watch the last Resident. Oh, not the last one, but in the series before. Go watch the movie Resident Evil, the final chapter. Go watch that movie. At the end, they tell you, they reveal to you that they were sick and tired of waiting for the judgment and the apocalypse. So they started it. They're telling you in the movies what they're doing. They're giving you a fake, phony apocalypse. You think it's the one that's in the Bible, but that's not. But that's nothing but a history of the past. But they got you thinking it's the future, and they're doing it. They're behind it. They're following a script. They're telling you in the movies because that's how they cleanse their guilt. And nobody can say, in their sick thinking, nobody can say, oh, you guys never warned us. You never told us. Yes, they did. You just didn't know. Oh, man. Well, it's about to be 12 p.m. and it's lunchtime. So I'm gonna end it there. See if they censored my stream again. Let's see if they took out my audio again. And all I can say, let those who fear me follow me, let those who oppose me die.